Hope is the cornerstone of every great sci-fi story. Hope to grow beyond the problems of today, to build a better tomorrow, and to venture out into the unknown. But how can hope take root in a world that's entirely alien from us? And what mark will this beautiful, deadly world leave on us in the end? Released in 2023, Joseph Bennett and Charles Huttner's animated series Scavengers Reign is a bleak, beautiful experience, setting the resilience of a scattered group of humans against a world of flora and fauna that have grown far beyond their control. Originally brought to life through a 2016 short film, Bennett and Huttner's vision has since grown into something much, much bigger, using the medium of animation to delve deep into the themes of humanity, survival, and our complex relationship with nature. While an abrupt cancellation by the streaming service Max has left its future uncertain, Scavengers Reign has become one of my favorite pieces of animation in the months since I've come across it, capturing all the horror, mystery, and majesty that come with exploring uncharted territory. Not just surviving, but finding a greater meaning in the act of survival. And with that meaning, finding a deeper understanding of our place in the world and the universe around us. Here, I will examine how the series developed its world, how it defined its central cast, and how it all builds the show's ultimate message. This is a story of survival, of finding connection through the unknown, and how these discoveries might be the key to saving our future. Prior to Scavengers Reign, co-creators Joseph Bennett and Charles Huttner were primarily known for their work on indie animation, serving as writers, directors, and storyboard artists on various short-form projects. However, this all changed in 2016 when the duo premiered their short film Scavengers on Adult Swim's Toonami block, which allowed the creators to pitch a longer-form adaptation to the network. Bennett and Huttner would spend the next several years expanding their 8-minute shorts into a full series, eventually landing a 12-episode deal sometime around 2021 with Max, co-produced through the animation studio Titmouse Inc. and Green Street Pictures. There's plenty of the short's DNA in this reimagining, from Vesta's unearthly blues, purples, and oranges to the biological MacGyvering the crew uses to navigate the planet. However, the many refinements and influences brought by a bigger studio definitely make their mark on Scavengers Reign, lending the appropriate grandeur and reality to this lush, beautiful, terrifyingly alien world.
When Charles and I were doing the short, we were following these characters as they do a process through nature. And you're kind of seeing this Rube Goldberg style cause and effect, trial and error throughout. It had no dialogue, so it was all visual narrative. When it was translated to a series, we started leaning into the planet's nature and what that could be,
states Bennett.
We had a nice runway for concept design and the ecosystems and all that stuff. This style lends itself to a tactility and the texture of the planet, really understanding the volume and how things move. We were trying to have a show grounded as much as you can in reality that is not on planet Earth. We even came to realize that there was almost nothing you could come up with on your own that's totally original, that doesn't already exist in some form or fashion in nature already. This is just another hue.
While I'm sure this sounds like an old cliche by now, Vesta is just as much a character as any of the Demeter's crew, with the series devoting a Ghibli-esque level of detail to the ecosystems populating every corner of the planet. Every plant, creature, and formation is rendered in a hyper-realistic style reminiscent of Mobius comics, heightened further through Axel Steichen's lifelike sound design. By contrast, the show's human protagonists are all fairly minimal, geometric, and stilted in the ways they talk to one another, which, to be fair, is probably how I'd end up if I got trapped in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of my coworkers.
Hypothetically speaking, in our contracts, could we charge the last couple of months as overtime? I know, it's funny. But seriously.
There's a real distance between the Demeter's crew and the vast nature around them, with the planet's indifference swinging between majestic and sinister from moment to moment. The beauty of the planet, shown through grandiose, sweeping shots and extreme close-ups reminiscent of space photography and nature docs, is often juxtaposed against the grosser, bloodier reality encountered by each survivor, dwarfing our human protagonists in the ever-present terror of a nature that's threatening to consume them. And Nicholas Snyder's soundtrack is the perfect accent to this collision of the man-made and the natural, swinging between understated strings and aggressive, synth-heavy tracks, dialing in the fragile duality of the planet and its inhabitants. All of these elements are in service of the living sandbox that is Vesta Minor, with the show's episodes becoming vignettes dedicated to parts of the planet that we, alongside the crew of the Demeter, are discovering for the first time. I guess I could say it really makes you feel like you've been marooned on an alien planet. But seriously, it kinda does. There's an underlying order to every part of the ecosystem, but when humans become the invasive species, we're removed from that flow, and everything becomes equally wondrous and terrifying. Just like the survivors of the Demeter, we're compelled to discover more Vesta, to analyze and define it, to make it mundane so it fits how we normally see the world around us. But of course, ecological horror teaches us that nature exists beyond human definition. We'll never fully understand it, and try as we might, we'll never control it either. When we're introduced to our core cast, having spent months on Vesta after fleeing the Demeter, they are all still clinging to the remnants of their insulated, industrial world, huddling in the remains of their escape pods and trying to fence in their own little corners of civilization as life on the planet continues to move around them. But when the ship's emergency protocols finally force it to touch down, this isolation gives way to the goal of freeing the Demeter's passengers and finding a way to escape the planet. And through these struggles with the wilderness, the show's creators are able to launch a more introspective, haunting journey, digging deeper into each character as they struggle to survive and find meaning in this alien frontier. In addition to the lush, living world of Vesta Minor, Scavengers Reign is also built around a loose ensemble of survivors, making their way back to their crashed ship while struggling to adapt to the wilderness they've been thrown into. Remember Hatchet? It's kinda like that, but if the Hatchet were also a tiny alien. Of course, every crew member's role on the ship dictates their perspective on the planet. Pilot Sam, voiced by Bob Stevenson, is appropriately all business, squarely focused on finding the ship and rescuing as much of his crew as he can. Sunita Mati's Ursula, the Demeter's chief biologist, processes everything by cataloging Vesta's flora and fauna, defining the unknown through a makeshift field guide. Wunmi Mosaku's Ozzy, a cargo supervisor, starts to develop a deeper relationship with her automated assistant, Aliyah Shawkat's Levi, as the two are put into increasing danger. And Ted Travelstead's Cayman, a company man being eaten alive by his own insecurities, is completely broken down and overrun by the indifference of Vesta. I mean, just look at him. That guy is not doing well. It helps that every performer in the cast lends a certain grit and believability to their character. None of these people are spacefaring pulp heroes. They're minimum wage employees forced into making the best of a terrible situation. Some weather it with grace, some are wholly consumed by the madness of what's around them, and some find new meaning and purpose in their journey.
I did some thinking while I was up here by myself. I realized how easily this could have been us if it weren't for you. Your instincts. We may not have expected to be companions out here, but I'm really glad we are.
Thanks, Sam.
While the grander plot of reaching the crash site hangs over the entire season, this quickly gives way to more episodic, self-contained stories for each character, exploring their respective backstories as they both use and are used by nature. Every episode keeps a painstaking focus on the crew's ability to craft tools and methods from the environment, from food to shelter to traversal to crude sources of light and power. But of course, there's also a heavy give-and-take relationship at play. For every feat of ingenuity, Vesta's ecosystems continue to reassert themselves, keeping the survivors constantly on the back foot. Weather can turn inhospitable and deadly. Parasitic creatures slowly co-opt and destroy their hosts, and even a wrong step in the jungle can lead to certain death. It's a haunting reminder of how the familiar becomes alien once it can't be controlled, and yet there isn't really any malice behind it, just the unspoken cycles of life and death that exist outside of our developed lives. I think, in general, we wanted to be careful with our depictions of violence so that it had the most impact, especially in the context of animation, states executive producer James Merrill. There's just so much inundation with violence that if you pull back a little bit, it can hit the audience in a way that can make them emotional. We wanted it to be super meaningful for the characters on screen because they're a small crew and they're so far away from home. What is the morality of a creature, a natural creature? What is man's relationship with technology, and technology's relationship with nature? And all of these people on this planet have experienced grief and regret and longing and loneliness. All these things were natural to the world, and it was extremely fun to just dive in and think about all the different problems we could create and then solve that would explore these themes. If anything, it's the concept of disharmony that becomes the show's primary antagonist, with several flashbacks exploring how the disharmony on the Demeter has led to disharmony on Vesta. Cayman's insecurity may have led to the ship's crash, but it's Sam's hard-headedness that ultimately sets this course, and funnily enough, keeps getting Sam into trouble. Likewise, Cayman's union with the creature Hollow makes a mutually parasitic, destructive relationship, with the crewman's instability introducing greed and hatred into the animal kingdom. Ozzy's guarded personality is tested as Levi, infected by some unknown spores, starts to gain sentience and even become human.
Everything okay?
In the future, I would prefer it if you didn't shut me off unless I'm experiencing some kind of critical malfunction.
Sorry, Levi. I was just concerned about what was happening to you.
What might appear strange to you is not necessarily a malfunction.
Naturally, these stories and environments start to overlap deeper into the season, bridging the characters' past with the struggles they have to overcome in the present. And as a result, the wreck of the Demeter starts to reflect these struggles for each character. Can I rescue the people I failed? Can I confess my feelings before it's too late? Can I find the courage to face what I've done? These nuanced journeys are what elevate Scavengers Reign beyond the more black and white humans versus nature stories of its competition. The Demeter's crew aren't resource-hungry capitalists, they're well-meaning people from an imperfect system being forced to unlearn their old lives in order to survive. Basically, they're us. And of course, the messier and more devastating these struggles get, the more we want to see these characters overcome that mess, to escape the chaos and return to normal. But what if normal isn't an option anymore? How do we achieve balance in an increasingly alien world? The Gaia theory, named after the Greek avatar of the Earth, posits that all life behaves as a single entity, and that every interaction between organic and inorganic matter is tied to a process that sustains and advances life on the planet. It's no secret that Gaia theory heavily influenced the design and storytelling of Scavengers Reign, with its creators taking every opportunity to show the mechanics of Vesta, having creatures and processes steadily overlap deeper into the season. And with humans, albeit ones without a lot of industry, becoming the invasive species on this planet, the series becomes a meditation on us, the world we've marked with our own hubris, and whether or not we can find the balance we once had.
If you look at stories like Robinson Crusoe, The Revenant, Castaway, and The Last of Us, you have a character with an opportunity to fight for survival and carve out a place for themselves, but there are always these forces that are aligned against them,
states director Benji Brooke.
It's a very human experience to want to establish order in the world and then have all these forces collapse against that. We're seeing that now with climate change, and these very philosophical ideas come up. If none of this is going to last, what is the point of it all? That's the experience of being alive and gleaning what we can from our moment on Earth. It's all about change. Fighting change, embracing change as a natural force, and humans being a force of accelerated change. How far you can push that idea of transformation and change for humanity.
Throughout the series, we see a number of creatures reject Gaia theory in favor of more nihilistic, self-centered modes of survival. Cayman's symbiosis with Hollow becomes more and more one-sided as the creature gains strength, becoming carnivorous and asserting itself over Cayman until it literally consumes him. Another group of scavengers, led by Pollyanna McIntosh's Chris, arrive as exploiters instead of rescuers, rejecting all things human, even empathy and loyalty, to survive. Even the company in charge of the ship is quick to put resources ahead of the safety of its crew, writing off hundreds of lives with little more than a
That's unfortunate.
It's an allegory that only gets more damning when held up to the ecological destruction perpetrated by real-life corporations, causing untold damage to the biosphere while suggesting that we can just colonize space and start fresh somewhere else. It's entirely possible that other worlds are out there, but if we keep things the way they are, then none of them are bound to last. Instead, Gaia theory posits that the hope for salvation doesn't lie in dominating nature, but acknowledging our role as part of something that's bigger than us. If the planet changes, we have to learn to change with it, to embrace the flow of nature, and have it nurture us as much as we nurture it. Sadly, the future of Scavengers Reign is in a very delicate place. Despite debuting to critical acclaim, even getting an Emmy nom by the time of this video's recording, the series was unceremoniously cancelled by Max just after wrapping its first season. And though it was quickly acquired by the streaming giant Netflix, plans to move forward still seem relatively uncertain. But while this sudden stop is incredibly maddening, especially in an industry where it's become so common, I can't help but connect with the quiet hopefulness at the end of Scavengers Reign. There's no easy answer to the questions of where we're going. And sure, people can look at that lack of answers and despair, but these fears are born out of isolation, and we've never been isolated. Not really. By embracing connection, we can turn our hope for the future into action, cultivate each other and the planet around us, and evolve into something truly harmonious. It's when we stop scavenging over the remains of what was that we can finally start building a future that's truly worth living in. Thanks for checking out my latest video and giving me the chance to talk about a show that's quickly become one of my favorite pieces of animation ever. I think Scavengers Reign is the perfect example of what indie animation is capable of with the right amount of attention, and even though it's been swiftly cancelled, thanks Max, its story of resilience and hope is exactly what I needed in what I think has been a pretty crazy year. That said, I'm super excited for Joe Bennett's new show, and I'll always have my fingers crossed that Scavengers might come back in the future. If you like this video, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps the channel out a lot. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Carol N. Brenneman, The Comics Cave, Dom DeFelice, and my patrons, who are helping me to grow this channel and continue doing what I love, and hopefully what you love too. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and take a little time to appreciate the world around you.